I met her in the corridor of the Ada County Courthouse on a cloudy Tuesday morning. You know the type. Gray skies, cold marble floors, the smell of burnt coffee from the vending machine in the corner. I had just wrapped up a case and was on my way out when I saw her. She was standing near the windows, papers clutched to her chest, her cheeks streaked with tears. Her blazer looked a size too big, her bun was slightly undone, and there was a tremble in her jaw, not of weakness, but fury, controlled, simmering fury. I'd seen that look before. Not in a courtroom, but in the mirror. Years ago. "You okay?" I asked gently. She blinked, startled, and turned toward me. Her eyes were green, sharp behind the gloss of tears. For a moment I thought she wouldn't answer. "They handed the case to someone else," she finally muttered. "I spent 3 nights prepping. I barely slept. And they just gave it to the district attorney's son." She tried to laugh it off, but it broke halfway through. That kind of bitterness doesn't go away easy. "Well," I said, pulling out a business card, "I have a case that's not nearly as glamorous, but it's real. A property dispute between a contractor and a bakery. Could use someone with your fire." She stared at the card, then at me. "Why would you offer that to a stranger crying in a courthouse?" "Because I was you once," I said, "and someone gave me a shot." Her name was Melissa. She called me later that evening, and by the end of the week we were sitting side by side in my tiny cluttered office going through affidavits and lease agreements. At first it was strictly professional. She was sharp, meticulous, relentless. I admired the way she dug into details, the way she cross-examined even the documents we received, as if nothing and no one could be trusted until proven otherwise. Over time, something shifted. Late nights turned into early mornings. Case discussions turned into long conversations about life, childhood, our favorite movies, our fears. I learned that her dad was a cop who died in the line of duty when she was 16. She said that's when she decided she'd protect people too, but with law instead of a badge. We started grabbing lunch together, then dinner. She made fun of my obsession with black coffee, and I teased her about her need to color code everything, case files, emails, even sticky notes. One evening, we stayed at the office past midnight. We were going over depositions, and I made a dumb joke. She laughed. Not politely, she really laughed. It was the first time I saw her drop the armor. She looked up and said, "You know, I think you're the only person who's ever seen me without the lawyer face." I didn't say anything, but something clicked in me that night. A few months later, we kissed. It wasn't sudden or explosive. It was slow, inevitable, like a puzzle piece finally falling into place. From that point on, we were inseparable. We worked together, lived together, built routines that felt like rituals. Morning runs, Chinese takeout on Thursdays, bad sitcoms on Sundays. She hated folding laundry, and I didn't mind, so we made it a trade. She did the cooking, I did the folding. I remember thinking, God, how rare is this? Not just love, but compatibility. I proposed on the anniversary of her first case win. We were in the park, drinking cheap wine out of paper cups. She said yes before I could even finish the question. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony up in the Sawtooth Mountains. Just the two of us, a justice of the peace, and a few close friends. Melissa wore a simple white dress and boots because the trail was muddy. She looked like fire wrapped in silk. During her vows, she held my hands and said, "You saw me when no one else did. I swear to you I will always protect you, your heart, your name, your world. Just like you protected mine." I believed her. God, I believed her with everything I had. We bought a house together. Nothing fancy, just a cozy place on the edge of town with a wraparound porch and a dying apple tree out back. We talked about fixing it up, planting tomatoes, maybe getting a dog. Life felt like a clean page, and we were writing something solid, something that would last. Work was good, too. We decided to expand. I put her name on the company, Evan and Hart Legal Solutions. Had a nice ring to it. We hired a small team. Our clients were mostly small business owners, struggling to keep their heads above water. We fought for them like they were family. We were proud of that. She was the star of the courtroom. Clients loved her. Judges respected her. I was more behind the scenes, strategy, management, finances. Together, we were a powerhouse, the kind of legal team that made big firms nervous. But beyond all the wins and the paperwork and the long hours, there was us. Every night we came home to each other. We cooked, we danced in the kitchen. We argued about dumb stuff, like which coffee beans to buy, but we always ended up laughing about it. I used to look at her across the table and think, I won the damn lottery. I was wrong. But back then, in those early years, everything felt perfect. And that's how they get you, don't they? With perfect. The years that followed were golden, or so I thought. The firm grew faster than either of us had predicted. Word of mouth brought in more clients than we could handle. We expanded to a second floor downtown, hired paralegals, junior, attorneys, and even opened a satellite office in Spokane. Melissa flourished. She had this rare ability to speak the language of both the street and the boardroom. She could comfort a single mom who'd just lost her business, and in the same afternoon, go toe-to-toe with corporate execs in $5,000 suits. Her charm wasn't loud. It was surgical, precise, calculated. Somewhere along the line, I brought in my old friend Tom Barkley to manage our finances. We went to college together. He was a numbers guy, always had been. A little stiff socially, but trustworthy, smart, and loyal. Or at least I believed so at the time. Tom and Melissa hit it off. Professionally, she praised his efficiency, the way he streamlined our payroll and cleaned up our tax structure. I didn't think much of it. We were all building something together. It felt good to trust people. At home, life was just as smooth. Melissa and I bought a 2-story colonial with a sprawling backyard and an old oak tree that dropped acorns on the roof at night. We got a golden retriever named Cody, who worshipped Melissa like she hung the damn moon. Our evenings were spent on the porch. With glasses of Cabernet, the dog curled at our feet talking about the future. Kids, maybe, or buying a cabin up north. Once we even looked at a property on the lake, just to dream. For our 4th anniversary, Melissa surprised me with a box wrapped in dark green paper. Inside was a Rolex, black face, silver strap, elegant but masculine. On the underside was an engraving. To the defender of my world, M. I stared at it longer than I should have, a lump forming in my throat. Do you like it? She asked. I love it, I said, and I meant it. Because at that moment, I still believed the story we'd built was real. And maybe that was the cruelest part of it all, the way she maintained the illusion, even as the first cracks started to form. At first, they were easy to ignore. A late night here, an unexpected weekend call there. Melissa began working more closely with Tom, often on special cases that required delicate negotiation. I didn't question it. Hell, I encouraged it. She had a way with clients I'd never mastered. I was proud of her. But then there was the night I came home to an empty house. Cody's leash still hung by the door, untouched. Melissa was supposed to be back by 8. By 10, I texted her. No answer. I called, straight to voicemail. She walked in a little after midnight. Her hair was slightly tousled, her cheeks flushed. She mumbled something about a last-minute client dinner. Her phone buzzed twice in her coat pocket. She ignored it. You could have let me know, I said gently, trying not to sound like I was accusing her of anything. She looked at me, tired but oddly sharp. Do you want me to turn down work? Is that it? No, of course not. Just a heads up next time. She kissed my cheek and went to take a shower. I let it go, but I started noticing more. Her scent would linger oddly, cologne that wasn't hers, or wasn't mine. She switched perfumes. I told myself she was just experimenting. She changed her passwords, started taking more calls in private. Some nights, she'd sit in the car in the driveway for 10 or 15 minutes before coming inside, and yet there were still moments of warmth. We laughed. We made love. She still made my favorite lemon chicken on Fridays. Nothing ever screamed danger, just a quiet hum under the surface, like a song you can't hear unless you stop talking long. Enough. Then came the night with our friends. We had a small dinner party, just the usual crew. Good food, good whiskey, old stories that always seemed to get funnier the more we told them. At one point, my friend Jake joked, "You know what they say. Men lie with words, women lie with silence. Better check your wife's browser history." Evan, laughter around the table, but Melissa didn't laugh. She froze, then looked at Jake and said, "That's a pretty misogynistic take for 2023. Jake blinked. "Hey, come on, just a joke." Her smile was tight. "Jokes have roots. You might want to think about that." The table went awkwardly quiet. She stood up and started clearing plates before dessert. I followed her to the kitchen. "You okay?" I asked. I just tired of the whole secrets wives keep trope. It's exhausting." "That wasn't about you." She turned sharply. "Wasn't it?" I wanted to argue, but something in her eyes stopped me. A flash of something cold. Not anger, not offense. Not offense. Just calculation. Like she was assessing how far she could push. Later that night, as we lay in bed, I couldn't sleep. Her back was turned to me. Cody was curled up at my feet, breathing softly. The Rolex on my nightstand caught the moonlight. The words on the back stared at me like a joke I hadn't figured out yet. Defender of my world. I didn't know it then, but that world was already burning. It started with an email. Nothing dramatic. Just a quiet message from one of our junior accountants, Rachel Dunn. Subject line, "Strange transfers need review." I opened it between calls, more curious than concerned. Inside were screenshots of 3 separate transfers, identical amounts, spaced just days apart, all marked as consulting retainers, but the accounts they were sent to didn't match any of our active vendors. I flagged the message to look at it later, then forwarded it to Melissa. She responded an hour later. "Thanks. It's just a clerical error from the new assistant. I'll handle it." I wanted to believe her, so I did. But then came the client calls. First, a longtime partner, Lyle from Ridgepoint Investments, rang me up with confusion in his voice. A contract we'd sent over had language that placed all arbitration rights in the opposing firm's favor. He was livid, said it almost cost him a major deal. I apologized, checked the file, and sure enough, it had been revised after I'd approved. Hit the signature? Melissa's. That same week, another client threatened to sue us for breach of agreement, claiming we failed to file timely protections in a merger. The timeline didn't add up. Melissa insisted the client had misunderstood the legal limits, but something about her tone was off. I started digging. Late at night after she went to bed, I'd sit in the home office with my laptop, combing through internal documents, financial summaries, case logs, emails. That's when I saw it. Melissa. And Tom had been booking private meetings at off-site locations, wine bars, hotel lounges. The descriptions were vague. Client strategy session, contract review, financial alignment. But the frequency, twice a week, sometimes more, struck me as odd. Tom had never been social. He was a spreadsheets and silence type. What kind of financial meetings needed candlelight and cocktails? I brought it up casually over dinner. "You and Tom are working a lot lately," I said. Melissa sipped her wine and smiled. "He's just easier to work with than you sometimes." I laughed, but it didn't reach my chest. That night, I woke. Up around 2:30 a.m. The bed was cold beside me. I wandered the house, checking room by room until I found her. She was sitting in the living room in the dark, phone in her hand, staring at the screen. When I stepped in, she locked it immediately. "You okay?" I asked. "Just couldn't sleep," she said. "I was reading some notes from the litigation case. You're not in bed? You're not in the office. You're sitting in the dark." She forced a chuckle. "Thanks, detective. Want to interrogate me or just get me a blanket?" I didn't say anything. Just sat next to her. We didn't touch. The next morning, I met with Tom. I told myself it was for clarity, but it was more about watching him squirm. I asked him about the transfers, about Melissa's schedule, about the contracts. He deflected. Said he trusted Melissa's judgment, that she'd been carrying more of the client load lately. His hands trembled slightly when he poured his coffee. That was the first time I saw fear in him. Later that night, as I walked Cody along the fence behind our property. I got the message. A new number. No name. Evan. Be at the Newmark Logistics. Warehouse at 7:30 p.m. tomorrow. What you see will change everything. Come alone. My heart sank. I wanted to believe it was a prank. Some disgruntled ex-client or a competitor trying to rattle me. But something in my gut told me otherwise. The Newmark warehouse had been abandoned for over a year. My father used to own the land before the city rezoned it. Nobody should have known that spot meant anything to me. I showed up at 7:15, parked 2 blocks away, and walked the rest under a fading sun. I positioned my car near a row of loading docks and waited. At exactly 7:30, headlights cut across the gravel. A sleek black Audi pulled up near the side entrance. I ducked low, keeping my camera ready. The doors opened. Melissa stepped out first. She looked different. Casual, but polished. Her body language was relaxed, almost giddy. She was smiling. Tom got out next. He didn't look nervous. He looked familiar with the moment. Comfortable. As if this wasn't the first time. They moved toward each other. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. She leaned into him, whispered something. Then they kissed. Not cautiously, not like two people slipping. In and out of secrecy. This was deep, intimate, passionate. I felt something rupture in my chest. I couldn't breathe. She ran her hands down his back. He pulled her closer. I filmed everything, and then my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. I assume you saw enough? I'm Tom's wife. Before I could reply, the phone rang. I answered, still watching them. Through the windshield. Evan? A female voice said. Calm, controlled. My name's Rachel. I'm not calling to hurt you. I want her out of our lives as much as you do. I swallowed hard. She's been manipulating Tom, she continued. Using him, threatening him. There's more. A lot more. If you want the full story, we should meet. For a long second, I didn't say anything. Melissa and Tom were still out there, wrapped in each other's arms like we didn't exist, like I never existed. Finally, I replied, where and when? Rachel met me at a quiet diner just off the freeway, the kind of place where nobody asks questions and the coffee tastes like burnt toast. She wore sunglasses even though it was cloudy, and when she finally took them off, I saw the same haunted look I had seen in the mirror the night before. Before you say anything, she said, I want you to know, this didn't start with love. It started with leverage. She laid it all out. Melissa had something on Tom. Years ago, before he joined the firm, he'd been caught up in an embezzlement scheme while working for a hedge fund. He wasn't the mastermind, but he wasn't innocent either. He was never formally charged. Melissa had found a way to bury the paperwork. Then she kept it. Used it. If he ever crossed her, Rachel said, she'd ruin him. Financially, legally, publicly. And so Tom did her bidding. Falsified reports, signed off on ghost clients, helped her funnel hundreds of thousands through shell accounts, registered to fake LLCs with names like Delta Strategy Group and Evermill Consulting. The money was laundered clean, then redirected to private accounts overseas. Melissa even had control over the staff, Rachel continued. Your assistant? Fired because she asked too many questions. The junior accountant? Blackmailed with an affair she thought was secret. I felt sick. Everything I thought we'd built, our team, our legacy, our future, it had been infested from the inside. Melissa had weaponized my trust, used my name, my firm, my people, all while kissing me goodnight and calling me her defender. We agreed to act quickly. Rachel had already started collecting evidence, screenshots of emails, recordings, of conversations between Tom and Melissa, paper trails from shell accounts. I enlisted a private investigator to trace the offshore payments. Every thread we pulled led to another knot. One of the most damning pieces came from a flash drive recovered from a locked drawer in Tom's home office. On it, a video, grainy, shot from a security cam, of Melissa in their living room, standing over Tom with a glass of wine in her hand. If you screw this up, she said, voice cold as ice, I'll make sure you spend the next 10 years trading commissary for safety. I buried one man. Don't think I won't bury another. We had what we needed. I called in a favor from a prosecutor I'd worked with years back. Clean guy. We walked him through the evidence step by step. He was stunned. Not just by the fraud, but by the way she used people, bent them, broke them, with precision. Then came the trap. We staged a meeting at a downtown hotel, supposedly with an international investor interested in acquiring part of the firm. Melissa couldn't resist the bait. She showed up in her best blazer, hair pinned, perfectly lipstick like war paint. I waited in the next room with Rachel, 2 detectives, and the assistant district attorney. She sat at the table, opened her laptop, and began her pitch. 5 minutes in, 2 officers entered. Melissa Hart, one said. You're under arrest for fraud, blackmail, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. She didn't scream, didn't cry. She smirked. It chilled me to the bone. You have no idea what you're doing, she said calmly. You think this sticks? But it did. The search of her office and home turned up more damning evidence. Contracts forged in my name, encrypted emails to offshore banks, and another flash drive. This one containing a personal diary of operations, names, threats, methods. She'd kept everything. The trial was swift and public. It tore through the legal community like wildfire. Melissa Hart, once hailed as one of the city's top legal minds, was now a symbol of corruption at its most intimate. People I hadn't heard from in years reached out in disbelief. Some apologized for not seeing it sooner. Others came forward, with stories of how she'd pressured them, manipulated them, used their weaknesses like strings. I took the stand. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I described what I saw, what I'd learned, and what it had done to my life. I held up the Rolex she gave me and read the engraving aloud. Defender of my world. I looked her in the eye. That world, I said, was built on lies. She was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. No parole for the first 7. All assets seized. The firm was dissolved. I walked out of that courthouse the same way I had walked in all those years ago. Alone. But this time I didn't feel broken. Outside, near the same bench where I had first seen Melissa crying in a cheap gray suit, I heard a sound, a soft whimper. It was a puppy. Scrawny, soaked from the rain, chewing on a discarded granola bar wrapper. I sat beside him. He didn't run. Hey there, I whispered. You lost too, huh? I picked him up, wrapped him in my coat, and took him home. I named him Chance. We moved out of the city. Bought a little fixer-upper in the foothills. Just me, Chance, and the quiet. I started a new firm. Nothing big. Just helping small business owners navigate tough contracts. Helping them see red flags before it's too late. Sometimes I give lectures. Talk about trust, deception, survival. I tell people that betrayal doesn't always come with blood or bruises. Sometimes it comes with a smile and a promise. One cold night, I built a fire out back. Chance curled up nearby, chewing on an old shoe. I reached into my drawer, pulled out the Rolex, and stared at the engraving one last time. Then I threw it into the flames. It hissed, sparked, and melted into the ash. A new chapter had begun.